PA, nurse practitioner, things like that, allied health into the curriculum. So yeah, that's kind of the basics. I don't know if anybody, I'd actually be really interested from the students, kind of what you guys would expect out of a curriculum. What, would you want something in a specific year of school? Is something you just expect sprinkled in throughout the whole course of your training? Just curious on that, if anybody's got any thoughts.
First of all, I think it's a great opportunity and I'm really excited about this. As far as when you should do it, I do think it'd be beneficial to have, it sprinkled throughout in the UMKC program, like years 3 through 6. However, I tend to think that things like this is what you start once you start seeing a lot of patients in your 5th year through your core rotations. I feel like that year would be really beneficial because you're starting. There's a lot of things that I feel like I would have loved to talk about my nutrition with patients, and I feel like sometimes you don't think things are important until you actually start seeing patients yourself frequently, and you kind of blow it off as something. Yeah.
You may have a little bit of a speaker issue going on. It sort of sounds like Darth Vader.
Okay, is this any better on mine?
Yes, much.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Could you hear anything I said?
Yeah, we could hear it.
Okay.
Just,
So
Yeah.
I don't think one that's better than the other, but I think 5th and 6th year, definitely. We see patients in years 3 through 6 at least weekly. So I think definitely after 2nd year. But if there's a heavier portion, I think it would be most beneficial in 5th and 6th year. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. There's also, I think 3rd year, it's still pretty lecture heavy. So I don't think anyone would be, if I'm being honest, I don't think a lot of kids would be super receptive because they're going to be too worried about micro exams. But then when we get into like 4th year and we start family medicine and we really have like continuity with some of our clinic patients, I think that's the time that it could start to build in. But then I also think there's also room to do it like extracurricularly for people with like outside interests like
yeah, so that's one of the things that we had talked about is seeing if there were any interest groups that might want to focus on this. There was like a family medicine interest group, internal medicine, pediatric, whatever sort of primary care where it might be the most useful. But also one of the things that we had talked about at the previous meeting is that this could be part of the wellness for medical students too. I mean, it helps to treat your patients with exercise, but it's also important, for you guys to have some lifestyle medicine curriculum early just for your own wellness to keep on top of, be a good example for your patients too, to say, hey, I've done this. I've gone through these things. I've worked on my nutrition. I've worked on my exercise, those sort of things. So I didn't know what you guys had to think about that as a,
I think
goal
one
of
part,
the program too.
Yeah, because I think one part we missed at the beginning, we were having some audio issues during our introductions. We are like the leaders for our school's wellness council. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we're here, because we kind of got involved with Dr. Ellison and the Walk with the Doc, just working on all aspects of wellness, especially for medical students. I'm sure you guys know that wellness isn't a super big priority for a lot of students.
There's also the food cooking interest group. I don't know what that's called.
Foodie physicians.
Yeah. Yeah, so as far that's very true, because I think wellness as students is
Mhm.
not a priority, nor do people really know how to make it one. And I think this would be something beneficial for us as well. I didn't even think about that.
And we also, I mean, obviously the people who run the other groups like family medicine and the foodie physicians, I think they would be into like collaborating with the wellness group.
Cool.
We could just get everyone in on it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be sort of an easier, more informal place to start for sure with some of those interest groups. Just kind of talking, 15, 20 minutes, just chatting about it and kind of talking about ways, again, for you guys to work on yourselves, but also, little tips you can give to your patients and the simple stuff, the easy stuff, like along with
Absolutely.
nutrition, along with exercise.
And we'd be able to organize like meetings or Zoom times and be able to spread it to the student body and say, we're going to discuss this on nutrition, and it can be a regular thing, not something that's required, but I think something that a lot of people would be interested in. We'd be able to like help organize that all.
Okay.
And I think if they are receptive to it, I think it'll be really good to have this in our clinics, because I think right now our curriculum about lifestyle, we know 150 minutes of exercise a week. We know that it's, we know all the details about walking because of Walk with the Doc. But it's very scripted, I think, on like a universal level. I feel like with medical students especially. So just getting that like baseline knowledge and just expanding that, I think is going to be awesome.
Well, and so I'm also on the sports sector group for the KCPA plan, and one of the things we talk about over there is adult sports. There's a big focus on ped sports, obviously, in my world, but adult sports, KC Crew is this great thing, and you could set up intramural teams and stuff with the medical students, do a little outside of work, outdoor fun, that kind of stuff. And that might be a good way to get people some knowledge about some of those programs too.
No, I think that sounds awesome.
They do everything. They have bowling, they have kickball leagues, they have baseball, softball, volleyball, all that stuff. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, because I mean, both of us were really heavy into sports, like during high school and everything. And then once, especially in the 6-year program where you go just straight into medical school, that it just abruptly stops.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So I feel like the easiest place to put a curriculum in where every student touches it and gets to see it and kind of decide what to do with it is in CPM in year 3 as you're preparing to go to clinic. And so that's kind of where Jay and I started, is like, he does a lecture there and just kind of making an introductory lecture about exercise as medicine. But you all touch on the important points of later in medical school when our own exercise and movement has allowed us to be well, and then sharing that wellness with our patients and sometimes in the community through Walk with the Doc and others leads to further wellness. So that's sort of service through wellness, which is that sort of senior professional attribute. So something you're going to see and feel more that I see both of you developing in your later years in medicine. And so where can we help you sort of as a boot camp of what you're going to do in residency, which is even busier than med school? How can we both teach you to teach your patients, but also emulate that for balance and wellness in your life? And which is why I always kind of dabble in all of these groups, because at one point we'll find the right place for all medical students and future doctors to figure this out. But we can include PA and we can make this very interprofessional, and then we can even expand it out to primary care specialties and make it more interdisciplinary. And so that's where we've come up with these ideas of dabbling in your interest group for our students that already get it, but how do we take it back so we can teach our patients, and that's really why student involvement is so important at this point as we try to develop these endeavors.
I think for me, I think when the students get the most out of things is when we actually it's all, like you said, we're all busy, so it's all a timing thing.
Yeah.
So if it's just like lectures or videos that are just added on to things, it's going to be something that students are going to play in the background, check it off their list, and not actually ever get anything out of it. And then like compare that to like our IEPs, where we have like the whole School of Medicine has mandated an entire day where we get off clinical duties to actually go and learn and do like interactive things like with other people. And then you have no choice. You're there, you're learning, you're doing it.
So where
I
is
also
that
think-
with the IEPs?
I think they've been at the Health Sciences building.
Before COVID, yeah, now they're on Zoom.
Yeah, now they're on Zoom.
Oh, you mean IPE, so interprofessional
Yeah.
education.
Oh,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But that's a great point, is that touches all of your different professions. So students can figure out how to do it. So yeah, when we did the poverty simulation in person, way more impactful. And then our call was always to go do service together. Very finally is like, we can solve big problems combining both of our respective programs. And so that's why I've kind of mentioned IP is such a great place for this. And it doesn't have to be all 9 programs every time, right? It could just be us and PA, or us and the PharmDs that are used to prescribing, but they're used to pills and things you eat and drink. And why couldn't it be walking? And their students are the most interested in our walk with the doc. Like most of them are very into that sort of thing and understanding that's a healthy way for both themselves and for our patients. So that's where we want to kind of pick your brains on how do we continue this IPE then, and then make it because going in the community outside and walking, we can do that safely. I mean, Walk with the Doc tells us how to, right? And then Walk with the Doc has a Just Walk program, which is all professionals. We don't just make it about the doctor part. So we're talking about ways to try to expand that, which I think I've talked to you guys a little bit about in emails. So, but if you think that's a great place, then that's certainly my wheelhouse to help with that.
Mhm. I think it could be. I think the IPE, if that's what you're talking about specifically, they're pretty short. And it's just one case. I think that's an example of what something we learn could be applied in a patient setting, in a simulation type of setting. I think that you said during CPM, I think that would also be a good time because we have to be there. We're learning different types of exams that year through CPM. I thought CPM was really helpful and would be a good time as well. But I do think having one IP piece that's nutrition would be helpful.
Yeah. And we did that. We finally recognized it with Darla McCarthy, who teaches biochemistry, and then Dr. Betty Dries, who understands the endocrine component of it, but it became an elective, which only touches the students who can take it, right? So
Right.
I think, your input would be so helpful on what suits CPM, but just touches medicine. And maybe we pull in the PA program for those and have some sort of strategic planning so that we all get the same baseline. And then in IPE, that's our biggest flaw, is that, we never go back and do this as an interprofessional team in the clinical environment. How do we do that? In the community, I can tell you, is a lot easier than trying to find room for 150 learners at Truman. And so that's where we've always kind of thought wellness through service or a Walk with a Doc or Just Walk program is sort of got it all, right? It's just that capstone of all of the things we've taught you. And then we get to go in the community where there's space and room to talk about it, and where patients feel hopefully less like we're a doctor in a white coat and they have an agenda about their health. We can just have more of a conversation or even take the walk together. And so that's kind of where it's gotten to, because we could. But how do we take it back to everyone's practice when they talk to a patient, whether it be family medicine or internal medicine? I do this in emergency medicine, or a PA or a nurse practitioner, which I do feel like including them makes a lot of sense in terms of that prescribing for health, prescribing exercise. Or I've always kind of laughed, like, ask your doctor if you can do this exercise program. No one ever taught me that. Now, Jay, I'm guessing you got it, but I can tell you it's not in our curriculum. It's never been in our curriculum. So I've always been very apprehensive about that as an athlete. Is they're trusting me more as an athlete than as a doctor, but in their minds as a doctor, I am saying like their knee, their heart, their kidneys, their brain, and their claudication are all passed, right? I'm not a primary care physician. I don't do that. And I know we don't teach that in clinic. Am I right?
Okay.
Internal medicine clinic, you guys don't ever get this is when you clear a patient for exercise. You probably get a cardiology referral, but that's just right? So I feel like patient care's got complicated. They trust us, but we don't really know for sure. And so that trust thing, I'm like, I don't blame them for not trusting us because I don't know. I'm like, let's go for a walk and let's see if you get pain. Well, that's not a good stress test. So I do feel like there is a need in the curriculum. There's a gap where each of you should be empowered to know when it's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And there can, you know, there's a lifestyle medicine sort of thing with the nutrition and the sleep, exercise, those kind of things. There can be, you know, if it's CPM 3, I'm guessing that'd probably be a 1 lecture that we'd have time to have on each subject, or 1 lecture on all of those subjects. Like, how much time is there in the curriculum to do it?
So there's never time. They're all meeting now to revise the curriculum, but it's years 5 and 6. So that's what they'll tell you is like, you know, we did sit down and like, it took 7 3-hour retreats just to move micro from the fall to the spring and then to make pathology a year. And we included 10 course directors. So it just, because there's no time, you have to be very instrumental in working with them. So we should sit down and say what we think the minimum should be for a longitudinal curriculum for CPM, where we could put that, work with those course directors, and then strategically implement this in year 4 family medicine. I've heard preceptorships going away. Is that true? Is it gone?
Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't replace it.
I said this during our internal medicine this past year. I wish CPM was longer, at least the workshops and some of the lectures, because we learn all these physical exams and so many important things during CPM in our 3rd year when we're just trying to get by in our classes. And granted, that is when we start to see patients, but we still have a lot of help. And so I do think that's something that needs to be more longitudinal. And if it's that way, we can include a lot more about nutrition. Yeah.
That would be
And
great.
I think
the right spot.
CPM is like the last time we're all together. Because 4th year, we all kind of do that's when our schedules goes completely random.
What about
and
the
so it's
care clinic?
So CPM 3 is during 4th year of the 6-year program, or is it during 3rd year of the 6-year program?
3rd year.
It's all a
3rd year. Okay, so 3 is
3rd year.
Assume that's what. Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
I've
it's
been
a
doing
2-semester class.
Because I've been doing CPM 2. I've done the musculoskeletal exam
Mm-hmm.
workshops for CPM 2, and I know there's a lecture and then there's a workshop.
Yes.
I don't do the lecture; I do the workshop part. But obviously that's not enough time to learn the knee and the ankle and the back and the shoulder and all the stuff we try to throw in there.
Right.
exactly.
But it's
That's
a good,
the main
it's a
time
good
that we learn that.
introduction. Yeah, but I don't know, so if there was a lifestyle medicine, would there be presumably a workshop and a lecture portion in CPM 3, or would there just be one or the other?
It depends. They always had a workshop for my intimate partner violence, where they would interview a patient with those very sensitive language and words. And this year they didn't pair a workshop with it. So it's really a matter of the CPM planners in working with standardized patients, and then those that run the workshop, if it gets done or not. And I've just kind of watched a couple little ripples in the curriculum where they just couldn't do a workshop with it. But I completely agree. That's the way why we designed it that way as part of those retreats. One area to kind of find room is clinical correlations occurs at the end of year 2, and students still have their docent experience, and the MD program students are there. We could put an introductory lecture in that series where you go back and talk about this lifestyle medicine in your group of 12. And that kind of introduction lands in that year 2 section. I see you guys nodding, so I think that's a decent match. And then in CPM 3, they are going to clinic. They are practicing some of these things, but it's been delayed a lot. And that's where the workshops came in. We could sort of start that process and orient those year 1 and 2 docents to do this. And then it's a nice introduction, and we only find 2 hours in CPM to do that with maybe 1 workshop where you learn 2 concepts. If that works, that's one way to kind of share the workload.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because everyone's year 1 and 2 docent experience is so different. And I think that a lot of docents are looking for things to do.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a great place to at least put an introduction, is like on this day or whatever, or, you know, the docents can pick whatever day as long as they get it done by the end of the semester. But having certain days where you talk about nutrition and lifestyle, I think that would be a great spot for it. Yeah. Or for
Now-
introduction.
Now, I don't think we have any PA or PharmD or any students on here, unless I'm wrong. But how would that work to kind of get them the same information so that IPE later on down the road they would kind of walk into it the same base knowledge?
So their program is only like 22 months. So we have them for just under 2 years, and they are heavily involved in our IPE because Kathy Irvey, who created the program, was always with us and just like, yes, I'll put it here. Yes, I'll put it there. One great way that's already built is in years 5 and 6. And I think they're doing that now. We bring the interprofessional teams back together with a PharmD and a PA student, and they interview a standardized patient. Now, because it's high stakes for pharm, we have to do like 3 or 4 different cases, but we could make a case based around lifestyle medicine, and that they have to counsel someone on a telehealth appointment on, I want to start this exercise program and I have diabetes and hypertension, and they all process ways to do that. They take into account if they're on a beta blocker, the pharmacist is there, what kind of exercise tolerance would they have? And I think that would be, it's already built in. And so I can't have the same PA students in years 2 and 3 because they leave, but I do have them in 5 and 6 together. So I could easily build a case in. I will warn you though, we have to change the cases so much so that, you know, students have to really exercise what they think. It'd be 1 of 5 cases, but we could do it. And we could get some really good assessment information about it because the PA students are already there. So I do love that because that takes it back where the
So they
students
could get
really want it.
so they could get a similar lecture in their first 12 months or 8 months or something that we would do in year 2 for the medical students, and then in their second year they do that CP with 5th and 6th. So it'd be different. I mean, I guess they wouldn't necessarily be together for the lecture anyway, so it wouldn't really matter.
Right, unless we put it into IPE. But I can tell you IPE is, we don't have a lot of resources. We're actually asking main campus for them, but they're right. We moved them to online, whereas we used to get together in small groups and process all of this stuff. COVID did that, but we looked at the data. Students appreciated it the same, you know, in person versus online. We're likely to keep it online, sadly. But in year 5 and 6, we bring pharmacy and the PA program back all together. It's easier to partner with 2 programs than 5. We bring them back together and we process these cases, and we could easily make a case. How would you advise a patient who wants clearance for an exercise program, and what would your prescription for exercise look like? And we can give them all the lecture. And that's where I come back to the students. Years 3 through 6 continuity care clinic curriculum is all online, isn't it? And then you go and practice in clinic with your docent, right?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
So your year 3 through 6 continuing care clinic curriculum, they design year 3 CPM. So you have all the skills you need going into clinic. Is there anywhere we could add lifestyle medicine to say your year 4 clinic curriculum? Like there's 1 lecture, and then you go practice with your docent and your team of students, both as a senior junior partner. And then it's just natural when you do our IPE stuff and I add the PA student, right? So do you see anywhere like in continuing care clinic clerkship lectures and then going to practice in the clinic?
I know, especially at the beginning, they had us do like checklists that we had to get signed that like we either performed or like presented something to show understanding of certain topics. Like
Okay.
some of them were physical exam skills, some of them were just concepts. So like prescribing exercise could be one of those.
Yeah, we don't have lectures for continuing care clinic though.
So no one lectures on EKGs or hypertension anymore?
No, there's just whatever we get through our clinical rotations.
Yeah, they're clerkship based lectures. So we don't, like Sophie said, we have checklists that we have to fill out, but I don't think that is genuinely comprehensive enough, or people take it seriously enough for this to make a difference in that. Like, I don't think adding it to that would do that much.
Yeah.
Okay. So IPE sits in the clinic clerkship. I mean, so your 3 IP, your points go in it, your 4 IP goes into it, and then these year 5 and 6 telehealth things that we're doing go in there as well. So it would make sense to work with them on like, how do we provide this lifestyle medicine, you know, because in my count now, clinical correlations takes 1, CPM takes 2, and then maybe year 4 clinic clerkship takes number 4, as we're building the skill set and knowledge base on nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle medicine, and then eventually wellness. I can handle years 5 and 6 and add PA and pharmacy, and I can work with them to implement something similar where it gives them context and abilities and practice. I'm just wondering if year 4, if there's a place I could work with Dr. Yulin Hake to implement this, and we might even be able to get PA students in the latter half of the semester or something like that. But you say it's not a robust online, because I remember docents used to like break out and go give you guys lectures for clinic, and now it's just mostly what you learn in clinic, right? So CPM sets you up, and then you and the docents like try to make it consistent with checklists. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
well, really quick, is IPE, do they normally excuse us from clinic to go to IPE? Is that how that works? Dr. Ellison, do you know?
I think it's in the
For the telehealth, we do. So in the telehealth, it was originally an in-person, go to the sim lab, interview a standardized patient, and come up with a plan. As the year 5 student, you join a PA student and a pharmacy student to interview the standardized patient on the day of your clinic. So it could be at 9. So you'll be excused from your clinic for that like hour and a half to go jump on a computer and do it by telehealth, and then you go back to clinic. So it is highly tied to that, but then students want to move it all around, but we already have to offer it 5 times a semester to hit every clinic. And so when people dropped off for interviews, I had to move them to this spring. So it's a big moving thing. And once we have the PA students there, they're not there every time either, but we can include them in that particular one. But it won't be for all students. There's always this mismatch in number, right? You guys are about 100 to 110, and there's 22 of them. But the farm students kind of match up well too. And so there's a lot of great, like the docents know about it. I recruit them to help teach it, but you should be excused for about an hour and a half from your clinic on the day of your clinic to go do that.
I was just curious if there could be
you're a
something.
resident.
Okay, I was curious if there could be something, if you're saying like a year 4 curriculum, if, you know, intermittently the 4th years can be excused instead of it saying telehealth or IPE, like for nutrition lectures.
Yeah.
You know, like 1 or 2 a semester.
I would love that. I worked for 14 months with Dr. Pirani and Dr. Walker on alternates to clinic. And we built some really wonderful things so that you could even have time off for service. And I don't know what happened. I mean, it's built. I can ask for one. I think the worry is always when you have one reason to be out of clinic, everyone comes with a reason to be out of clinic. And I think that's where they've just tried to kind of set this standard of clinic is clinic is clinic. So, but I do love that you say that, because I was watching them send them out of clinic after 2 hours. I'm like, wow, they could go down and do vaccines and all kinds of amazing things with that time. And they want to do it. But there's a little underlying, once we give them one reason to be out, and no one's really been able to broach that yet. But I can try again. I've done it for over 10 years. But I don't want to make it an add-on. That's my rule, is if we're giving you this really great learning activity and it suits year 4 learning objectives, does it have to be in clinic, or could it be instead? So maybe you're right.
I do have one question, because I am just thinking about when we have the most time to actually just sit down and kind of absorb, and like campus semester. Well, yeah, either campus semester or 6th year is the time when we're all doing electives. Like you said, who takes the nutrition elective the 6th years? If there was a way we could make that elective either not required, but more promoted, or just like even more enticing. Like if it's something that like, okay, we can all take this during interview season. We all log our physical activity and we make cool food together and we post it on a forum, what cool food we made, and like made it like fun, but like also worthwhile, to where more people would take it. Like instead of medical Spanish where they really don't learn anything, they could come here and actually like practice being well during a time when otherwise it would be very stressful.
Are electives a month?
4
Mhm.
weeks. We've changed it to 13 4-week blocks just to get more time. I've been as crafty with time as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're truly looking for a time where students would actually be receptive, it's 6th year, but I know that we talked about, you know, wanting to do it overtime so that we learned how to be well as med students. But if this was
Like a tie it all together.
If this was a like peak last thing of the curriculum, you know, 6 years a really good time we have the time to listen.
What about humanities? Because I mean, again, electives only touch the students who take them. So what about humanities? Every student does a medicine and art, a medicine. They're actually willing to consider service requirement in humanities because they feel it suits their objectives of, you know, being humanistic and empathic in medicine. What if lifestyle becomes a part of being humanistic to yourself in our humanities curriculum?
I think,
everyone would take that.
yeah, I would take it.
I think
Part of
humanities is
humanities elective, right? So every student gets it. So even if you did medicine and war, you'd have to talk about how did people stay well during this crisis of war, and that they would pray, they would play music, they would focus on culture. We could find a way to do that. But it would have to be everyone, right? So every student gets it. So some students take humanities. You have to take it in year 5 or 6. So, but it would be a lighter month where we could add it and students wouldn't feel like it's an add-on and I'm already busy.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
we could just, because we have to fulfill a humanities requirement, right?
Right.
So could we have like the lifestyle elective fulfill that requirement? Like if it was its own thing?
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, that's one way to do it. It's just that, remember, if it's one of 6 electives that meet the requirement, not every student gets it. So if we're talking about a curriculum and where we add it, every student would need to get it. And so it'd have to be in every humanities elective. But maybe that's what we do. Maybe we propose a new humanities medicine and lifestyle, and then build it as a humanities meeting a requirement. We'll get to 20% of the students, and we'll get some great feedback on how students feel like it's a boot camp at the end of medical school to both prescribe wellness and exercise to their patients, but actually live it to really help them stay well. I think that's tremendous. We're actually having a meeting next week, so I can propose that idea.
So if you have a humanities elective, what's kind of the expectation that you would have a lecture a day, a lecture a week? Because I assume that's a month-long elective
It is
as well,
4 weeks
or
long.
4 weeks.
And it's 5 credit hours. So technically, you need to have, let's see, for every credit hour, it's 12 and a half, so 25. It's just like 37 and a half contact hours. And so, but you can make the contact hours. I mean, medicine and art, some of the students' time was doing an art project on their own and then coming back to reflect on it. And sometimes they send you to the Glore Museum and talk about art, or to the Nelson Atkins Museum. So students can do that on their own time, which they find to be very empowering. Is like, I'm doing farm at the same time, or whatever they might have going on in the background, or research. They decide when and where they go. So I think they meet, is it usually 1 to 4 Monday through Thursday?
something like that. We normally in medicine and art we met a couple hours a day during the week.
Yeah. So, and we can't meet in the mornings because all students have their own clinic that they're committed to. But if we were to offer that, Jay, maybe we all just put our heads together, including Shelly, because she's got great content on nutrition. And we just propose that we make a medicine or lifestyle medicine humanities elective. And then there's just some basic objectives we have to meet. There are some bioethics we should include in there, and things like that, that meets every elective for why we're having humanities interspersed in medicine, but it's not tough. And then for 4 weeks, we'd have to find time to all teach it. But I would love to help provide that. I think that would be a great way to sort of model what this looks like, and then get feedback from students.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a way to kind of ease into making it something that every student learns, I think that's a good place to start.
Go from an elective to an expectation to a requirement, kind of.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yes, because
humanities
I
would
really
be one
think
of
every
those
student
one of
should
5.
get. And I think every student wants this information.
Mhm.
I mean, all of our patients in clinic, I mean, a lot of them, struggle with obesity and diabetes and hypertension and whatnot. And I think all of us would love to know more.
Yes.
about what we can
Just,
do.
yeah,
for
to
them.
just have a tool to handle that in a 15-minute visit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's condensing it down with knowledge. Well, that's one way to do it. I do think there is a way to add one lecture in clinical correlations and just slowly build this out. So I do think there is a way to do that so every student gets it, but to really dive in, same as I do with my service learning elective, is you get to do this stuff all month long and have the time to do it. It sometimes just takes that. But what I want is for students to say, this is how to give every student this humanities information. So humanities meets a requirement, but there's 5 different humanities electives offered across all the different programs. So are offered across years 5 and 6. So students all have their own individual schedule. They just find the one that works. And sometimes they get the one they want. And that's also equal parts, faculty being available to do this for 4 weeks. We would have to kind of lower things a little bit in terms of our allotment. But I think that's a great place to consider it. And we might be able to add 1 lecture per humanities elective that makes sense in that elective to be that sort of capstone of our running curriculum between years 2, 3, 4, and then whenever they take that humanities. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I could see if we could make a case in telehealth. Again, it only touches 20% because it's 1 of 5, but it's a start, and we can get really good feedback from students who are like, I totally don't know how to tell someone they can do exercise. I have no idea how to prescribe this, but that would be something we'd add as we kind of implement everything else.
Okay. Well, I know it's 1, and I'm sure everybody's got stuff to do. I think this is a great talk. I don't know if Aaron, Sophie, Stephanie, and I should just kind of email about this, kind of chat, maybe set up a little time where we could kind of hash out maybe what's in it. If you guys can anybody take a look at that lifestyle medicine thing from South Carolina, because it probably, from what it looks like, it's pretty extensive curriculum. I think kind of pare it down significantly, but but maybe in the future it gets to that point where it's really extensive. So I think that's where to go. I didn't know, did anybody else have any thoughts or comments before we jump off?
I'm excited. Especially because I'm probably right now going into primary care, also thinking sports medicine. So this is something that I'm going to be using probably my whole life. But it's applicable to every student. So.
For sure. I think it's one of those things that just gets neglected in medical school, like musculoskeletal exam stuff.
We actually didn't get a lot of our physical exams because of COVID. So we're the worst physical exam cohort that they've seen.
Just practice on each other.
In the ER then. I will help you with that in the ER. You're like, I never got my knee exam. We'll go do it. You will definitely get.
If someone's there for a shoulder, you can still examine their knee just to get some experience.
So every joint counts the same. So I'm going to examine both your knees and your ankles.
Yes. I know Shelley said Veronica was going to try to help us set up another meeting. I didn't know if we just wanted to kind of make the next meeting around the one that Robin and I were going to talk with Jennifer Trillick from South Carolina on March 22nd. Maybe we could, that's going to start at 12:30. I'm pretty sure. I'll clarify that, but I didn't know if maybe people could listen to that. Maybe we all stay on another 15 minutes after or something and see if we got any thoughts on what she said.
Yeah. And I'll just kind of look at this real quick. I'm writing this report in IPE of all things, which is good. This will inspire me, and we'd like to add this, but I'll look at it and just kind of lay out what I think might fit with just the one ask of most programs. I mean, CPM deserves to have 2, I think, lectures to try to work on this and just lay out what I see being very similar. I always tend to go for the dream curriculum when I take it to curriculum, like this is what we really want. And then see where we can navigate, negotiate with different course structures. Like, oh, sure, I can give you this one instead, which is why I've always encouraged you, Jay, like you have a lecture, you have a spot. See if you could find some foundational way to start talking about this. And then we'll see if we can build from there. Because getting those spots is tough. I mean, I put ultrasound in the curriculum and I bet, Sophie, you've never seen it because They pushed it out of convenience because they worked within their own department to give lectures. And so we're trying to put it back in, but it takes kind of one course at a time and getting traction, and then letting them know that there's an ultimate thing students will do with this clinically. So it's really important they have this foundation.
Yeah. I do have one idea before I go.
Yes.
Just because me and Aaron and I have this connection with the Wellness Council and we have reps for every class, would it be helpful for us to create like a Google form to ask every class and they can just submit at their will when they would like to have it?
Well, I think you mean like to have an elective or
just
like you're polling the students for when they thought it would be a good idea.
Well, they'd have to know what it is. I'm not sure we know what it is, right? Like, is it 3 lectures, 2 workshops, a case in IPE, and then a capstone in your humanities like block or something?
Yeah, and is it just exercise? Is it also nutrition? Is it like how much are we going to try to squeeze in that spot? True.
Or I mean, if anything that you guys need from us to help your case with pushing this, if you need us to say, send out a poll, how comfortable are you diagnosing this or prescribing exercise or talking about it? And if they're all like, I don't know anything about that, then that's a point that we obviously need it.
I think that's a really good idea.
Oh, yeah. So they identify the gaps and how important it is to them that we find somewhere to put this. Okay. Yeah, I think after that meeting on March 22nd, we might find out like just what the whole thing looks like. And then maybe design those questions to ask students, because that's the key to going to curriculum is students are like, I feel like I missed this. And it's so important. I'm asking you to do this for my classmates. Those are coming, up and coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and we love to say that the AAMC student complete application is like everything, but it barely gets to these sort of points. Like we always know neurology is kind of weak, but it doesn't ask as much about nutrition, exercise, wellness, prescribing exercise, clearing patients for exercise, knowing your basic physical exam for sports injuries. I mean, I think it would be incredibly helpful for us to explore what students think are missing, so that as our reason to put it in. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Maybe Sophie, as you're kind of going throughout your day or talking to your junior partner, just kind of the things that we say we're missing and that we feel uncomfortable leaving med school with, because by the time I get your input at the end of med school, we tend to go back to the drawing board, but you have a chance to impact your curriculum now and see it happen before you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I was talking earlier about the time, because I just don't want the younger students to put it on the back burner.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's nice is you say, this is what we're focusing on. And if they say, hey, that's not where I think the focus is, we should hear what they think the focus is. Like if they'd rather hear about COVID long haul, which I'm still confused about.
I'm still suffering from.
I know. I literally, family members, coworkers, they're like, what is this fog? And I was like, first of all, I hear you. I see you. I know it's a thing, and let's work on it. I actually did find a decent curriculum to regenerate the smell. And I talked to 2 people at a swim meet this weekend. They're like, there's hope. They just needed to hear there was hope. I'll be honest with you. But I did kind of play the podcast in their ear real quick because her husband was so desperate. He just couldn't taste anything and he was getting depressed because of it.
Yes.
But we'll find out. We'll find out the gaps because it's changing quickly on us, and what you got changed because of what happened. But we can certainly impact it and find a way to, sort of incrementally build this in until it's complete enough for what students want. But I do feel like sending you off into residency, we owe you a way to kind of not just teach wellness or help advise wellness for your patients, but I don't think you'll ever get there until you can find your own. Because it's been hard. Burnout's real. And so I want to send you with all of the tools you need in residency to do this really hard training that you're about to get, but at least give yourself room to do whatever is important to you. If it's running, if it's exercise, if it's walking, if it's knitting. For years, I had to counsel students preparing for step 1 on that. And that was the thing I could not find for them, was this ability to excuse yourself from the hard work and you will learn more effectively if you take a break, go eat, go take a nap, go for a walk. And they would come.
I lost 20 pounds in step 1.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just the stress and cortisol, I didn't change. Actually, I upped my exercise. I added you guys a couple of times and I still just put on weight. that was probably the alcohol early on. But that is a horrible coping mechanism. Like, I know it.
Yeah.
And so a couple of us in our neighborhood got together, like, let's just talk and have hot cocoa. Like, we don't need to drink wine this time. But I did take those moments with my neighbors, and I didn't used to permit myself that. So defining the need and knowing when you need it and making space for it, and then getting institutions to make a policy. I can pull some great wellness stuff from our residency and our wellness committee at Truman. So we can take it all the way to people like us, Jay, in practice, where we're just always asked to do more. But I think there are ways to reinforce, protecting us to give this humanities elective and things like that. I think those will be really important ways for us to like build on learning from our lessons and allowing our students and future doctors to incorporate wellness into their lifestyle, because that's the trick. That's the real trick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks. So I'll look at this and I'll kind of lay out an outline. Maybe, Sophie, you design in your head and talk to Erin about some questions. We're getting together with Walk with the Doc here sometime soon, hopefully. And then when we have that meeting on the 22nd, we can maybe continue to revise that schedule based on what they're demonstrating in their curriculum and see what we can really pull off.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool. Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
All.
All right. Thank you.